You know a lot about golf.
Well, we're waiting.
Ain't no need to wait no longer. How you doing? It is Monday, and as we promised and or threatened, depending on how you look at it, it is time for another live from the Golf Cave with Jeff Smith. As you can see, he is there in the Golf Cave at Timbergate Golf Course. And what we're waiting on him to do right now is to explain to us, as we have also told you on many occasions, that where your ball position is the perfect ball position for you depends on A, who you are, what your swing might be, and what club you're using.
Oh, no, come on. You can keep rolling.
No, that's it, man. It's who you are, how the swing goes, what club you're using.
That's right.
And I'm going
to – and the type of shot you're trying to play.
There you go. So I knew that was coming.
All right, man. You knew there was more to it.
Take it away.
All right, so here we are. Hey, thanks for joining us. Welcome. Glad you're here with us. We're going to talk a little bit. John's going to pipe up. I'm going to pipe up. We're going to talk a little bit about why certain ball positions work for you and why certain ball positions are awful for you. So there's a couple things that I want to cover. That I've got different clubs. I chose a wedge. I got a 7-iron. I got a putter. I got a hybrid, and I got a driver. So we're going to talk about them. So I got a few things to help us out. All right, I got a ruler down here in case we want to talk about it in inches and you want to think about it that way. And I got 4 golf balls down here, 4 half of golf balls right here. And so I can talk about different ball positions as it relates to the center line of the body. So I never talk about ball position in relationship to the feet. Lots of people come to me and they're like, well, I line my ball position up inside my left heel. And my first question is always this. Hey, John, do you ever put your feet in exactly the same place? And John will look at me and go, oh,
beats me.
I don't. And now all of a sudden, because of that question, the awareness came about that now what we've done for a long time to people is get them to set the ball position in relationship to a variable. If you take a look, John, I got a lot of possibilities of where I'm putting my feet from swing to swing. So what are we really looking for? We don't want a variable ball position. We want to know, why do we put it a certain place? So let's think about the different stances and the different lies that we have. You know, maybe I'm hitting down the slope, or I got to, my foot's up here and I'm swinging down here and all that stuff. What I got to do is figure out where my club's going to land. What if I'm uphill? I got this one, right? I got to figure out where my club's going to land. What if I got a relatively level? The same thing applies. I got to figure out where my club's going to land. Okay. Now,
so let me guess one thing here. The most important thing is finding out where your club's going to land.
How about that?
Uh-huh.
You set me up perfectly for that. How did you know that was coming? Amazing. Your intuitiveness shocks me.
I'm like that. I am.
All right, so let's talk about, John, you even alluded to this early in the intro.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of swing do you have? There are people out there, everybody, that they're going to swing more steeply and come down in across them. There are people that swing more shallow and swing out and they're skimming, and there are people in between that.
Mm-hmm.
The ball positions will be different for those players based on their normal stock swing and where their club lands, where their low point of their swing is. Now, notice I mentioned that those are 2 very separate things, right? You caught that?
Got it, yeah. I'm taking notes.
Where the club lands is really simple. Landing spot, first place club touches ground. That can be the same as the low point, but it's not necessarily the same at all. For example, you enter the ground where it first touches, and then it continues to move down and forward, creating a divot, and then it exits. So landing spot is first touch of the ground. Low point is the deepest part of the divot, and then it exits after that. Those are where they're two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say you're hitting it off of rock hard ground, and the low point is actually at the bottom of the arc, and it's also the first place that it touches the ground. Could be the same thing. But for the conversation we're about to have, they're two very different things.
Okay.
Entry point versus low point, right?
Gotcha.
Make sense?
Perfect.
Okay, because I know if it makes sense to you, it makes sense to everybody. Right? That's what we're at.
That's it. Lowest common denominator right here, buddy. Let's go.
Right. So I'm not going to speak to the people who are different than one another. Let's just speak to the commonalities that they have. For example, I mentioned earlier there are guys people come down and across and they're steeper.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it lands and where it's angled and how deep it is versus the people who are more shallow and kind of more in and out, all that. But let's just understand that for the purposes of our conversation today, to find your best ball position, regardless of who you are as a golfer, to find your best ball position is actually very easy.
Okay.
So you'll go to the fairway, some low cut grass, right? And you'll just swing, you'll loosen up, and you'll make some golf swings. Loosen up. Then I want you to take a club and I want you to put it on the ground. Underneath your spine.
Okay.
And now that you've loosened up, I want you to make 5 swings that are normal speed, normal swings. Nothing fancy, nothing half swings, none of that stuff. I want you to make 5 swings. I want you to do something as simple as make note where that club first touched earth. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Landing spot.
Mm-hmm.
Do that with your wedge. Then go do it with your 7-iron. Then go do it with your hybrid. What you're going to find out is that they're a little bit different. The wedge swing will land very, very, very close to the sternum and the spine, zipper, all that right there in the center line of your body. You're going to find that your normal swing is going to land very close to that. Now, there will be variations between golfer types, but who you are as a player, you'll find it. And you'll know that you're going to want to put the center of the ball at the landing spot. John, why is it the center of the ball at the landing spot? Why?
So
what are you thinking?
So your club hits the back of it before it hits the ground.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Common sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy stuff. Folks, if John can get this,
Anybody
you can get this. That's right.
Yeah.
Even Mark can get this.
Mark.
So, hey, Mark Hunter
agrees.
joining us. I love that. Right? So thinking about this, Mark, I'm glad you're in. That's terrific. At the bottom of the arc is the low point. So that means, John, with this wedge, if the middle of the golf ball is at my entry point, my landing spot, you're right. I will have struck the golf ball and then the turf, even though it's not at the low point. It's at the entry spot. And now we're really good. We've hit the ball cleanly. We've got a good clean strike. We get height, we get spin, we get everything we want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing more difficult than that.
No, it isn't. And there is nothing that feels better than not feeling your iron shot.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put that.
Yep.
Now, middle iron. Got a 7-iron. when I do this same thing, this 7-iron is a little bit shallower than the wedge. So it's not going to be as deep as the wedge, but at the same point, it's a longer shaft. It's a little farther away, but at the same time, it's also you're going to see this, the landing spot will be slightly ahead of the landing spot for the wedge. So let's say that the landing spot for the wedge was dead center, as an example, right? The landing spot for the 7-iron is going to be half an inch or so in front of that spot. It'll happen that way. It's coming in a little shallower. You're turning through, it's sticking out a little farther, shaft's a little longer. You're going to find that with just regular practice swings, no ball there, you're going to find that that's where you're going to see it land.
Mm-hmm.
So that means the bottom of the golf ball would be a little bit more forward. It would be on top of the landing spot again.
Mm-hmm.
That means this golf ball is about a half a golf ball in front of where the wedges are.
Right.
Does this make sense?
It does.
And again, John, your astute reasoning is so that because we want to touch the back of the golf ball before we touch the bottom of it, before we touch the ground, we're in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
We know we're going to strike the back bottom of the golf ball. We know it.
Yep.
Right? We never strike the absolute equator because the clubs have an angle on it
Mm-hmm.
rising up. That means it's actually touching somewhere between the equator and the bottom of the golf ball, and we're touching that spot, and then it's still moving downward. So we're good shape.
We are.
I got a hybrid in my hand, and guess what? There's a pattern to this conversation. You know that, right?
I'm beginning to discern that, yes.
I got another ball position for you, right? I got a longer club, shallower swing, and when I do this, and where this hybrid club starts to land is also in front of where that 7-iron was landing.
But
By how much?
About half an inch.
You'll know. It'll be about that, right?
But the thing of it is,
So just think.
the important part here is it's going to be different for everybody.
That's
maybe
right.
maybe not totally different for everybody, but take a practice swing, pay attention, and then you'll know where to put your ball.
That's right. But everybody can do this uber simple thing. This is absolute basic information. This is not high stress, high level, high tech information. No, it's not. We have different ball positions based upon the club we've got on our hand and its landing spot when you make normal golf swings. Whatever club that is, you put the ball at the bottom of the ball at the landing spot, ensuring ball then ground contact.
Mm-hmm.
So once we've ensured that, we now know how to work with this. So now we can begin to talk about ball positions in relationship to swing arcs. So I'm going to take these balls that I've got here and move them around a little bit. And we've got some arcs. John, you can see this, can't you, very well?
I can.
All right, so we've got an arc. Most everybody who swings a club swings it on an arc from behind us to down around it in front of us, and the club passes through that arc. Now, some people's arcs are shifted over to the right. Some people's arcs are shifted a little bit more straight in the middle of the arc, and some people's arcs are shifted a little bit more toward the left. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
The people who swing that they're a little bit shallower, clubs behind them a little bit more, a little bit lower, a little flatter, those people, their arc will be shifted a little bit more to the right. The people who come from here on the side, the arc will be shifted and turned a little bit. The middle of the arc is now moving more forward. And the people who come where their shaft's a little higher, their elbows back and their hands down a little bit, those people, their arcs will be shifted a little bit to the left. Does that make sense?
It does. What doesn't make sense is the ball goes the opposite direction.
I know. We'll get to that. That's a flight issue. But we'll talk about that in terms of ball position and how we can alter these things.
Yes.
All right, so for now, I'm going to pick up this middle iron, and I'm going to stand here. And by the way, I'm going to show you and demonstrate the one that's a little bit more in the center, where my body is pointed in the direction of my target. I'm going to come in more from the side and come around so that we can see it on the camera very well. You saw how that flows?
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Makes perfect sense, man.
Passing over these balls right there in an arcing fashion. The ball that's in the back, if I was to swing this club here, if I had a ball that was back in my stance to the right side of the center line of my body significantly, as my club travels through this arc from back behind me to down around and in front of me, and if I made contact with this back golf ball, look at where this club face is traveling and facing, John. Where do you see it? Way out to the right?
Yeah.
Can you tell?
I can.
I'm going to make it easier to see. Hold on 1 second.
All right.
There we go.
Ah.
Now we can see a little bit more.
I
right?
love that little gizmo, man. I need one of those.
Right. So if I have the ball too far back in my arc, it's now moving and facing to the right too much. And my ball, she's going over there.
Right.
Make sense?
Yep.
If I move it a little bit more forward in my arc, it's still going out to the right, but not very much.
Mm-hmm.
If I move it to where the bottom or my landing spot is, which is absolutely, for me, in this instance, the landing spot in the middle of the golf ball is, take a good look. My club is traveling and facing toward the target. And if I have my ball positioned too far forward of that, more toward the target, by the time my club arcs through and gets there, it's now traveling and facing left. Does all that make sense?
It does. Let me ask you a question.
Good. Yes.
Are you telling us this so that we can make sure we hit it straight, or are you telling us this so we will know how, by just changing the position, we can change our ball flight if necessary?
Oh boy, you're the greatest setup man I've ever had. I'm seriously, John, in the last 20 minutes, I have never had a better setup man.
Well,
ever.
That's why I make the big bucks, buddy.
In that question, could it be one or the other? How about it's both at the same time?
Okay.
Let's be aware that ball position and swing arc direction, when they meet up, sends a ball in a certain place if the club face is facing where we're swinging. Okay?
Perfect sense, yeah.
If it's facing somewhere else, now we're talking about curvature and a whole different conversation, right? But let's keep it to the club face is facing where it's swinging on that arc the entire time. So wherever it comes in contact with the golf ball, it sends it off in a line drive. How's that?
Okay.
So if I wanted it to be straight line shot to my target, it would have to be at the point in the arc where the club face was traveling and facing to my target. Make sense?
It does.
But if I wanted it to go somewhere else, I could keep my body alignment the same, move my golf ball either to the right side of my body a little bit or to the left side of my body a little bit, and get a different flight direction on purpose. Now, some people go, okay, so now that's a conversation about straight lines, right? If I put it more to the right, it would fly more linear to the right. If I put it to the left side, it would fly more linear to the left. Does that make sense? But you asked a question earlier, John, that makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. Hey, why is it curving the other way?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into this. We talked briefly about this in our last one, so I won't go into this in full. I'll just ask the people that are out there with that question because they're watching this one. Go back. Watch our last one.
Yeah.
The last one, I elaborated on this quite a bit. All right. If the ball is curving in the air, that means that the club is traveling in a certain direction when it touched the ball but yet it's facing somewhere else. It's facing either to the right of where it's traveling or left of where it's traveling, or you won't see much curve at all. Does that make sense?
It does.
That puts spin on the ball. So I'll briefly touch on, hey, if I put my ball to the right side of my body, I'm catching it further back in my stance, further back in my swing arc. It is now moving farther away from me, moving out to, because I'm a right-handed golfer, it's moving over that way, which is to the right of the target line. That's where the swing arc is going. If the club face is pointed to the right of that, the ball will leap off even farther right of where I'm swinging it at the time it touched it and spin away even farther. This is the right and then right shot, the one that you used to have, John. But you no longer have it. Because number one, we fixed your ball position, and number two, we fixed your club face position. But we'll get into that on another day.
Okay. I won't ask that question then, because
I digress. We do
very
it so well on our show, but nonetheless, that's where we are with you, right? But what if I want to create my draw? What if I have this beautiful arc coming from behind me, down around and in front of me, and then coming back inward later? What if I want a draw? I want my ball to start out a little bit to the right and come back a little bit to the left. We know that the club face has to be pointed toward the right of the target to get it to start out over there. We know that.
Right.
But the swing path also has to be to the right of the target, but even more than where the club face is pointed. So a back ball position, a back further to the right, actually enhances that. The face could be, say, a couple degrees to the right of the target, and the path needs to be twice that amount. If we're talking math. If we're talking flight going, okay, straight down the middle, right on the target line is 0 degrees offline. If the club face sends the ball about 2 degrees offline, I hope that I'm swinging about 4 degrees offline in the same direction. So that way, the face can start it off, and the path as it touched it will create the spin to curve it back to the target.
And it does one of those
Yes.
so pretty shots, man.
If I wanted it to fade, I would, because a lot of people play fades. They don't want to, right? But some of the best players in the world, as we even saw the guys who are playing golf on television, now that they've got the shot tracer, we get more visuals of the guys who are actually playing fades all the time. And they're on top of the leaderboard in major tournaments. It's great. Hey, Greg, how are you?
Thanks for the input, Greg. He apologizes for the math. There will not be any more.
Yeah, sorry, we will not do any more math. But, Greg, there are a handful of people out there that insist we talk about it in that way. And there was my cursory. There, that was it. Right? That was all we're going to see.
It's over.
Now we change it back into English. And say, okay, it's going to be a little bit or twice the amount. How's that? Okay. Or no, how about more than a little bit by the same amount?
Yeah.
So some people want to play the fade. The better players want to play the fade. You know why? Because they hit it really hard, but they want it to stop a little quicker. And fades, generally speaking, stop a little bit faster so they can throw darts at flags from 190 yards out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, John, oh my gosh. Think about that for a second. They try to do that. So they put their ball, if they line themselves up to their target line and swing in this arc, they'll put their ball slightly forward in that arc so it will catch it traveling a little bit left. And for Greg's sake, it's only a little bit left. I don't know what numbers to put with that. But the swing direction is traveling a little bit more than that, farther left. And then the ball starts out a little bit left of the target and curves back to the right to the target. So ball position can help us hit it straighter, can help us hit a draw, can help us hit a fade. As long as we understand landing spot and which direction your swing arc is moving.
There's
We
there's
can
one
learn
element. One element
shots.
as a rank amateur, I would like to point
Yes.
out is that a lot of times when you're sitting there and you're thinking that the ball is in the middle of your stance and you're making the adjustments back or forward from that, you're totally wrong. I realize that whether it be an optical illusion or the way my head normally lies when I'm addressing the ball or that what I thought was center was actually way ahead of center. And when you do the applications with the club and all the measurements and stuff you do to find the center, it looks sometimes like you're behind the center point, but you're really not because of the way the ball flight goes. You can tell that, hey, this is where it should be. I'm
All
just
right.
pointing that out.
I'm going to help explain that one in a easier way.
Okay, thank you.
So let's say that I don't cock my head one direction or the other. You see where that took my eye line and what I saw?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I have my head here looking straight down and I don't twist my head to the right or twist my head to the left, I can see things appropriately for what they really are. But the second I cock my head one angle or another, I now have a skewed perspective. Make sense?
Yeah.
So as we look at this, here's a great way for the average player to see where his ball position is. I've now taken this club, I've got this putter, and I've just stuck it right out of my belly button, straight out in front of me, and I look down and I see which side of the shaft the golf ball is on.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? How easy that is?
Makes perfect sense. And that's
If I'm looking straight down the shaft, it's sticking straight out of me,
right.
looking at it. And if I've got the middle of the golf ball right in the middle of the shaft, I know where that is.
Mm-hmm.
If I've got the ball right, I'll see it that way. If I've got the ball to the left, I'll see it.
Exactly. And my point being that if you don't use that club as a measuring device sticking out from your navel, then what you perceive as being center probably isn't center. So that's all I'm saying.
Right.
But let me ask you another question.
So we've got to make sure that our,
yeah, you have a putter in your hand. So it would behoove me at this point to ask you a question.
You don't see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your audio and your video is getting a little skewed. Yeah, we'll let you catch up a little bit, but you have a putter in your hand. So does ball position make a difference when you're putting also?
Oh, yeah. Hence, I brought the putter with me because ball position absolutely makes a big difference because we're really talking about details now. We're talking about precision work up close. We're trying to putt a ball exactly where we intend to putt it. So ball position certainly affects that arc. Most people do a very nice job of keeping their putter face, especially the better players, keeping their putter face from twisting about the shaft so the head is not rotating. They do a nice job of that. They also have a discernible arc. If their putter is taller and they're closer and they're standing up, the putter arc will be more straighter back and straighter through. Mm-hmm. Notice I didn't say straight back and straight through. I put the on the end of those.
We did notice that.
It never will be straight back and straight through on the putter head. It will be arcing all the time.
Right.
The people who have a putter that's bent flatter and they stand further away will have much more of a significant arc. So ball position in relationship to that arc, you want the back of the ball to be at the place where the putter is arcing and at that moment facing where they want the ball to start. And at the place where it is in the bottom of the arc of the putter. It goes up and way back, down on the way through. It gets to a level spot at the bottom and then begins to go upward yet again. Now, we're trying to hit it with as level a flat bottom as we can. We're trying to essentially elongate that bottom of the arc to keep it from being significantly up to down to then significantly up, because we're trying to be consistent with how we deliver it. But we have to acknowledge the fact that there's a very small part where it's actually level to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So ball position matters on putts quite a bit. We're trying to get it where the back of that, excuse me, I'll pull over a real golf ball here. We're trying to get it where the back of that ball is at the place where the putter is level to the ground and straight toward its target on its arc.
Mm-hmm.
It's a three-dimensional arc. Yes, it's around and around, but it's also up and down at the same time. Make sense?
Yep.
So there is a place to put the ball to get the best strike. Here's a great way to find out. Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody's cell phone has a camera on it
Mm-hmm.
with video.
Mm-hmm.
A terrific place to put this camera to get a video of this is right at the back of the golf ball or at the front of the golf ball, either way. And then you would see at where did you put this in your swing or in your stroke that the putter was level, and the camera will tell you when it's level and where the strike is. And you'll also see the ball itself leap up off the ground only just a little tiny bit before it starts. But if I put it too far back, I could hit it with too little loft and bounce it, or I could put it too far forward and effectively lift it. Neither of those things do I want.
Right. Gotcha.
So get out your cell phone camera, put it out there, and see where in that stroke that the ball or the putter is the most level to the ground. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
It is easy. Everybody watching this has the ability to check that themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They also have a cell phone with a video, and they can put it there to find the forward position.
Right.
And then they can confirm that by putting it down the putter head line on the target line and see if that same position of being level at the strike is also straight forward in the arc at that very moment. And now they know where it is, and many people can identify it by looking down and finding that ball position to see whether that is in relationship to the center line of the body.
Mm-hmm.
Is it on your nose? Is it on your left nostril? Is it on your right nostril? Is it under your left eye? Is it under your right eye? I tend to tell people when we find it, I tell them about where the back of the golf ball is at that point. So that way they can think that they understand the back of the golf ball is being struck by the face of the club, and that's where we want it. So I rarely speak of the ball itself when we're talking about putters. I talk about the back of the golf ball,
yeah,
and where that is. That ball position makes people better putters, because when you have too much variation in what is supposed to be a precision strike at a very small place, ball position really truly matters here, and it affects people's strokes. They sit there and they work on their stroke all the time, but if I just watch them and they didn't twist the face of the putter about the shaft, and I just watch them putt and ask them, is that the best stroke that you've got? Could you make that all the time? Is that repeatable? And they say yes. All of a sudden, hey, Kerry Lonis, how you doing, Kerry? It's good to see him again. I wish I could see him in person. He's a great guy. But anyway, if we put the back of the golf ball in the right place in that person's arc, they are instantly putting it better. Their ball stays on line more. Their ball gets struck in the middle of the club face more. Their ball goes the right distance more often.
Mm-hmm.
John, they're just better. So as we talk about this whole thing of ball position, when we get down to the nitty gritty and do it with putting, it is fine tuning things. And that's why I love people to use their camera.
Okay.
Once they have it, they can set up a little station with golf tees as markers of where they'll actually put it. And it's amazing to me what happens.
What
It
about
gets much better.
the forearm rotation in Carrie's question? He asked, how much forearm rotation do you have in putting, if any?
I try not to have much at all, Carrie, because forearm rotation, you can see, turns the putter face. I'm not really trying to turn the putter face about the shaft. So I'm really not after much at all. Now, I do know that when I stroke it and my elbows are down and my arms are down and I stroke it back, there is rotation from where they started from, but they're not really truly rotating about like this. This is also rotation and this is rotation, but I'm not rotating my hands over wrist rolling and any of that stuff because I don't want the putter head rotating about the shaft. So there's a couple types of rotation. Carrie's talking about one, and I'm trying to be clear that there are two separate types.
Mm-hmm.
If I've got one perfectly square, I begin to take it away, the face and the forearms actually did rotate off that line, but they stayed true to the arc.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
they're true to the arc. And when the arc gets it back on that line, then we're in great shape. So Kerry, that's a great question. He's a golf professional. I've known him for years. And that's a great question because it's a distinguishing thing between how people communicate. Some people will suggest that there needs to be a good amount of rotation. That means forearm rotation equals hand rotation equals club face rotation off and then back on to the target line. And that's a big discussion in people's strokes and their arcs. Mm-hmm. But the truth is that the best putters, when you watch them, there's very little face rotation about the shaft.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
That's where we have. So Kerry says, hey, good answer. Great.
Yeah.
I love it. Here's a guy who knows what he's talking about telling me that I know what I'm talking about. I love it.
That's pretty cool. It's nice to get that kind of positive feedback, man. When you noticed when you putt that you kind of rest the grip of the putter against your left arm or your leading arm, is that to cut down on any temptation to rotate? Or
well, what it does is it solidifies that the putter face is going to truly be true to the arc that I set it to.
Okay.
All the time.
Gotcha.
And what happens then is because I like to putt, this is an example, I've got it up against like Matt Kuchar style, right? Mm-hmm. It is in the putter, it's effectively, the butt end of the putter is effectively trapped against the middle of my, inside of my forearm right there.
Right.
And that I put my right hand on there and I putt, and there is an arc that I putted on. Now, people who do this, if they put the ball more center, they need to have more loft on their putters because of what it'll be at the time that it touches it. But I tend to do this where I know that because of this, using this style, John, that you brought that up, this style means that the left shoulder is really the fulcrum of this, and my arc is more forward of center, where it gets flatter and straighter, so that I move my ball to match it. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Right?
It really does.
Right.
Appreciate that. So,
yep.
To recap, ball position can be a beautiful thing. You can use it for whatever changes you need to make, but it's important that before you start messing with it, you find out what the right position is for you. And you can do that. And pardon my use of this word. I hope I offend nobody. You need to practice.
Look, I realize that you are practicing the word practice. I think it's terrific.
It now falls trippingly from the tongue, and I'm going to do it any day now. I swear. No, but it is. when you
We
do
used
find,
to have to
when you do find, when you
go
practice,
ahead.
find little things like what you thought was the middle is not the middle. And
Right.
you can make adjustments and you go, oh, wait a minute, because I have now found my perfect ball position for most of my iron shots. I'm still working on the perfect ball position for fairway woods, and we can talk about that in another day. But my iron shots, thank you, Mr. Jeff, are crisp. They're clean. They're more or less straight. And now I'm going to have to learn how to hit a fade, because if I don't, when I hit the green, which I have done numerous times now, I have a tendency to roll through or roll over or keep going.
Right.
Because I know what my distances are, but I don't figure the roll into it. So,
Right. So I gave you what you asked me for.
yes.
Right. You balls going sideways now.
Mm-hmm.
Golf ball, you actually get to strike yours at least 3 times.
I know.
Before you have to reach into the bag for a new one.
You know, I have actually walked off the golf course with the same ball I walked on with. Yes, I've done that.
Isn't that great?
Oh, that's a great feeling, man.
You know, you used to do that before, but that was always that spare that you had in your pocket that you forgot about. You kept going back to the bag and getting out another one and throwing it down. Right?
Yeah.
But so for everybody out there, thanks for tuning in today.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about ball position. We went through this, but go to the $5 Golf Club. I've got a video out there on ball position that goes into a little bit more detail, a little bit more depth about ball position, so that way you can play your best golf, get your best strikes without sitting there trying to overwork your golf swing. We don't need you to overhaul anything. We need to learn how to adapt. We need to learn what it should be for who you are as a player.
Mm-hmm.
Without me trying to fix a golf swing of yours, I can fix a lot of your problems with the right ball position for what it is that you do. Listen to what we did today. Go watch that video on the $5 Golf Club. Join it. See it. You'll see some more videos out there too. We've done some good stuff. We're going to continue to do some more good stuff. John, thanks for starting the show today, and we'll catch y'all. We'll catch y'all the next time.
We will. And before we leave, we do want to make a few announcements. One is that if you play golf for business, we've got a website we want you to go see. It's called thebusinessgolfcourse.com. Go check that out. We've got a free download there for you on the Perfect Golf Foursome for business, how you can set that up. And also next Sunday, if you're watching this live, Memorial Day weekend Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern time on the SB Nation Sports Network, we will have a special guest on next week's show, Oliver Horowitz, who is the Harvard student who went over to the old course and got a gig as a
the American Caddy in St. Andrews book.
The American Caddy in St. Andrews. He has been up to a lot since he was on our show about 4 years ago with that book. Still has very successfully managed to not really get a real job. He's still doing golf and stuff, but he's got a lot of funny stories, and he's a great guy. And we're going to have him on the air next Sunday. So want you all to be aware of that. And again, if you missed the show, you can always catch it on thoseweekendgolfguys.com. All right. So $5golfclub.com. You can get some of Jeff's videos. Thebusinessgolfcourse.com. If you play golf for business, if you don't, you should. It's a great way to build relationships much more quickly and much more deeply than you can any other way. So that's it. Shameless self-promotion is done. Jeff, go to work. I'm going to go take a nap. We'll see you later. Thanks for joining us. And do follow us on the Facebook page, and you'll be alerted every time we go live. Thanks again. We'll see you later.